Welcome back to the Severe MMA podcast. And today I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm really looking forward to speaking to her, Serena DeJesus, who is fighting this coming weekend on Invicta FC 44 against Lauren Mueller. How are you doing today, Serena? Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm doing great. I'm really excited for my fight, and I'm just, finishing my last little bits of packing before I get an early morning flight to Kansas City, where this is all going to go down.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to speak to us today on Fight Week. And before we get into the fight, Serena, I just wanted to talk a little bit about you're actually the first pro female autistic MMA fighter. And I just like to talk to you about your journey about being on the autism spectrum and what you've had to do and the hurdles and the obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you are right now. I guess the first question I would have was that when did you first find out you had autism, and how does it affect you on an every day-to-day life?
So I was 13 when I was diagnosed. So growing up from little 4-year-old to then, I was misdiagnosed and put on all these different medicines I really didn't need. And it wasn't until a therapist who in, one of these residential treatment facilities that was in at the time, took me and my parents aside after observing me for a bit, and she's like, she's not any of these, she's autistic. And this is like the early 2000s. So of course everybody,
Yeah.
including myself, is like, what's that? And then
Yeah.
as we learned more and more about it, we're like, oh my God, this finally clicks. And then I was able to kind of get the intensive therapy I really needed, help with my social skills, help me, kind of navigate life. And so, going from thinking I was a broken neurotypical, meaning somebody who's not autistic,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like everybody has these things that I have going on, but I'm just a weakling who couldn't adapt. No, it turns out that literally my head is on overdrive all the time. So
Mhm.
it was nice to finally have that answer.
Yeah.
And I didn't need all these medicines that these guys put me on before. So when I finally had the right diagnosis, I felt like things were starting to finally move in the right direction.
Awesome. So you had quite a bit of misdiagnosis when you were younger, and a lot of medication trial and error and stuff, I guess. And if you were to
Mhm.
talk just a little bit briefly about some of the treatment and the therapy that you would have had to do. So I know there's a lot of social cues and stuff that autistic people have a difficult time in picking up and everything like that. So what would have been some of the treatment that you would have done from an early age right up? And are you still doing some kind of treatment right now, or have you kind of?
So here in the States, when you hit age 20, we age out, meaning you don't get services anymore because I
Oh,
guess in America they figure out that they think, oh, you're an adult, you don't need any support anymore, and they pretty much just kick you off. I had a case manager who was more or less like a Jiminy Cricket of sorts on my shoulder, helping me understand social skills and had goals that I had to meet like every week. Like we'd set 3 little goals I'd have to meet every week, like
mhm.
have a conversation, like, about this or just life skills in general to work with. And it would build up and up and up. Like I really wasn't a social butterfly as a kid. I don't think I really was until I started fighting because I'm like, I don't really relate to a lot of people because even as a kid, and right now I'm a big anime person. Anime didn't really catch on, I think, until like probably 10 years ago, anyways. So
Mhm.
I was kind of that nerd. So I would hang out with other nerds like myself, but I also loved doing athletics, even though I was clumsy. I would try my best anyways because I just loved it. And so it felt like either way I didn't fit in. Like when I first started training, for example, I talk about training to my nerdy friends. They look at me kind of like I had 3 heads. But then I talk to my athletic friends about anime and they look at me like I have 3 heads. So I was always in that predicament that I didn't quite fit in with
Sure.
everybody because I was just kind of all over the place, in my own little niches and stuff. Like, I still play with Legos all the time, and everyone's like, "You're almost 30 years old. Why are you still playing with Legos?" I'm like, because Legos are freaking tight. That's why. So, little things like that. Like people my age are like going out clubbing and stuff. I live in like a nightlife capital, and I'm just like, I don't see the need of going. And they're like, well, why don't you want to go out? I'm like, the drinks are free, the weed is legal, and everything I need is inside. So
That's great.
that going on. So, but martial arts really, I think, brought me out of my shell a little bit, because no matter who you are, what you are, as long as you're working hard and you're passionate about what you do, everybody accepts you anyways.
Mhm.
So, I really
And
have a
it
lot of thanks to martial arts.
would the structured lifestyle of a professional fighter, everything is rigorous and is in place, does that help you in your everyday life as
Yes.
well? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it does, because I know training is at this time, on
Mm.
this day, at this location all the time. So it's really helpful. So it helps me to kind of tailor my day to the rest of it. And even my family notices when I don't train, for example, for a few days. They notice how much more agitated I am by everything around me. So
Mhm.
they basically push me out the door. So they're like, go train right now.
Yeah, right. And
So,
what was their reaction when, I guess, you first approached them about wanting to fight as a professional fighter? I guess you had to do some amateur fights first, and was
a
it a
little
bit of
bit, but they
pushback?
weren't surprised. They weren't surprised. I grew up watching a lot of mixed martial arts when I was younger on VHS with my dad, because as a kid I also loved Power Rangers and Sailor Moon. Like, I watched anime before anime became popular in the States with Pokemon and whatnot.
Yeah.
So all that fun stuff. So when I'm seeing fighting for the first time, like I'm seeing Marvin Eastman um versus giant Brazilian dude. I'm forgetting his name.
Fedor
Arroyo, I think
Belfort.
is his name.
Was it?
No,
No?
no, not that one. That one I did see that one though. It made it upset. Like this other one, Aru.
Uh,
It started with an A. It's this big giant dude. It's not Vitor. I know Vitor, but it's so funny because now
Bustamante?
he's
No?
no. I'm trying to
We'll
like
stop.
rack my
We can stop playing the Brazilian game
last
guessing
name
game.
starts with an yeah. The last name starts with an A. I know that, but I'm seeing that. I'm seeing Gary Goodridge versus Paul Herrera. I'm like, wow, this looks like the fighting games and the Power Rangers and all the anime I watch. I thought it was so cool. So I
Yeah.
was a fan of it growing up and watching it. So of course, when I decided to start training, because at first I wanted to train because I graduated high school, and if I was just working and going to college, I would go insane. And I know that. I know that
Mhm.
about myself. If I don't have an outlet, I go nuts. So I saw a gym close by, and I'm like, I want to give it a shot so I can be an educated fan at least. Not that
Mhm.
person in the bar is saying like, "Oh, just stand up." If the guy's just laying on you, just stand up. I didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
But then my first grappling tournaments turned into my first Muay Thai fights, and then my first Muay Thai fights turned into my first MMA fights. I just loved it. But my parents weren't really surprised, because I did try my hand at Taekwondo for years as a child. And
Mhm.
there's this one point in fourth grade, like there were like these five kids who were mad at me because I basically mouthed off to them because they wouldn't shut the fuck up when I was, trying to learn. They're like interrupting the teacher, and I was like really annoyed. I started mouthing off at them. They tried to pick on me in the recess yard, but there was a tree branch there because all outside and whatnot. So I channeled my inner Rafiki from the Lion King and just beat the crap out of all of them. But I got in trouble for that. They didn't
Yeah.
five against one. Those five people didn't get in trouble. I got in trouble. So my parents yelled at me in the principal's office. And then they took me up for ice cream afterwards. They're like, "We are so proud of you."
That's
So
awesome. You're picking up
you
W's
know
on
what?
the school ground. That's great.
Yeah,
So
it was so great. And you know what? Those people didn't pick on me anymore. So it was just like one and one added up. It's like, huh, if I don't take anybody's nonsense, they won't pick on me no more. So
great. That's
everybody
great.
got it if they wanted it.
And you grew up in Philadelphia, that's right?
hmm
And you're over in Syndicate MMA now in Las Vegas. So
Yeah.
how was that transition? You pretty much picked up and moved right across the way of the country. So how was that transition for you moving over there to Syndicate?
It was a huge one, because at first it started with me having traincations over, or I would take my fight camps to Syndicate, because
Mhm.
um one of my idols in fighting, and now my best friend, Roxanne Modafferi, was finally stateside again after living in Japan for like about 10 years. And I
Mhm.
really wanted to train with her because um, in 2014, I went to Thailand and I wanted to go back again. But in 2015, there are political riots. I'm like, you will not find me going halfway across the world to go jump into some place in political turmoil where people are throwing like fire bombs at each other. So I messaged her because my summer vacation from college was coming up. And I'm like, can I please train with you? And I'm thinking to myself, the worst thing she can say is no, because she's so nice. And she's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, oh. So I booked my tickets and went there and then trained the whole summer there. And we became best friends. And so every time I had a fight camp, I'd just come over and, train over there and then have my fights, then fly home. But then I had kind of this cross country odyssey of sorts that happened in 2016. So at the tail end of 2015, flying into Vegas, training, I fought up in Utah and I won. I had Misha Tate, of all people, asking if she could take me out for dinner. I'm like, what?
Oh.
I'm a 3-0 amateur. What does she want with me exactly? I know that she's cool with me because I'm Roxy's friend and whatnot, and we've hung out briefly in the past. But she took me out for Thai food. She picked me up in her Range Rover, and I'm like, is this happening? And so I'm like so grateful and so touched that Misha did this to me. So at the end of dinner, I just kind of blurted out, like out of gratitude, like, hey, if you get that fight with Holly Holm, you need a southpaw to toss around, just let me know. So
Awesome.
lo and behold, I go home, have celebrate Christmas, whatnot. January rolls around, she's like, hey, I need you out here for a week. And I'm like, on my way. So I fly out there. I'm part of Misha's camp for a week. And lo and behold, she is tossing me around like a rag doll. In the midst of me being there, I get another offer from a friend of mine who I've met before in Invicta, Andrea KGB Lee, who's now UFC flyweight. She's like, hey, I need a whole bunch of 135ers. I don't care if they're amateur or pro. Can you come to Shreveport? I'm like, I've always wanted to go to Louisiana, so why not?
Nice.
So I literally packed I have 2 duffel bags in my name, one with my training gear and one with my clothes. That's normally how I travel for like fight camps and stuff anyways. So I go down there, train with Andrea for 3 weeks. And then Andrea is fighting on the same Invicta card Roxy is in Las Vegas. So I'm like, oh, cool. I can go back to Las Vegas, find a fight, see my friends fight in Invicta, and everything's cool, and then I can just go home. So I don't find a fight after that. So I'm like, oh man, I'm looking up airline tickets to go back to Philadelphia, and they're really expensive. I have a place, I'm renting a place, a little room to live and everything. I'm just doing my thing like always. And then my mom and I had this conversation about the airline tickets, and she's just like, Serena, just stay there. And I'm like, what? Because she knows how miserable I was in Philadelphia because the training's fragmented, at least where I was in Philadelphia. Like people go to one gym for boxing, one gym for Muay Thai, another for jiu-jitsu. And it's like, unless you're an established pro or you're made of money, you can't really do that. So it was hard. And it was even harder finding local girls to fight. The only girls who were serious about fighting and not being what I call pad princesses were all my teammates. So, I mean, clearly I'm not going to fight my teammates. So, all of it just added up for me to just stay in Las Vegas. And, it was hard a little bit, but thankfully, Roxy being the awesome person she is, like after the place I was renting got sold, she's like, hey, you want to be roommates? I'm like, oh, it's like I get to see my best friend every day and we get to train and do things together. It's sign me up.
Awesome.
So, we're roommates for like 3 years. And then, some weird twist of fate led my whole family to move here to Las Vegas. And then I came back and with them, and we've been having a grand old time ever since. So
awesome. And of course, Roxy is getting prepared for a fight late next month against Talia Santos. Have you been helping her prepare for that fight, and how is she looking?
She's looking great. I'm normally her main trading partner because we've kind of been that way for years. But she's looking good. She's a pain in the ass with her movement, meaning like I have to try and catch up with her because normally I'm like trying to stay in front and she's moving too much now in a good way, as she probably should with someone bigger like myself. So I really like how she's looking. I'm really happy for her and I can't wait to see her fight.
Great. And I'm sure she can't wait to see you fight this Friday too. Just before we get into your fight, just want to talk a little bit about your coach, John Wood. Is there anything that you and John would do differently in comparison to any other fighters in the gym? Is in regards to special coaching techniques or anything like that that stands out?
John's really good at helping with movement. Because you see a lot of fighters who kind of march a bit. He's very good with movement and angle working, and he's good at utilizing what a fighter already has in their arsenal and then adding on to it.
Yes.
So that's what, and John, as you probably hear in like UFC fights, when you hear him in the corner, he's a pretty good cornerman, I would like to think.
Yeah, he
Like,
definitely
his knowledge
is
is
for
on
sure.
point.
Oh, for sure. Big time. I have to agree with that. And I mean, it's come full circle for you, Serena, preparing Roxy, preparing Angela Lee back in the day for those Invicta fights. And you find yourself back on Invicta yourself for your second fight with the promotion this coming Friday. I mean, Invicta FC has been just a major focal point in women's MMA. They've been doing some great things, and Shannon Knapp has been doing some great things through the years. How much does it mean to you to be a part of that organization?
It really means a lot because I remember watching Invicta from its inception when it was still like online pay-per-view from like this one site. And then seeing my friend Roxanne there, me being there as a fan, being part of it, just watching Roxy fight her way and like you really start reinventing herself. And now going from fan watching their friend fight to being an actual fighter on there, it's really neat. And I really like it. So, and I'm just really happy to be back with Invicta again because it's been over a year. Because the last time was with their Phoenix series tournament, and that literally happened days before the entire United States got locked down when the pandemic started. So
Yeah.
it's nice to finally come back. I'm really wanting to show how much I've been working because I have my Muay Thai coach Marvin Eastman with me, who's been working with me for over a year now, and I really have reinvented, I think, my Muay Thai style, which I'm known for. And I've gotten more dangerous with it as time's gone on. So I
Nice.
can't wait to just put it on display.
Great. So like before we get actually into the fight itself, when you're preparing yourself to get into the cage, I know a lot of people who do have autism have a lot of sensory issues and stuff like that. So what do you do to kind of combat those feelings or and get yourself into the right frame of mind when you're getting in there to actually fight somebody in the cage?
So I personally use a lot of CBD, and it really helps. I also changed up my diet, which really helped. I'm actually on a keto diet, which has helped me not be as anxious. When my sensory stuff kind of trigger a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not having like anxiety attacks or whatever anymore for the most part, which is really great. But I do a lot of breath work, and I just have my own little routines. Like I kind of move I do certain things like how I move and stuff. Like I do my set kind of yoga routines. I always do because that kind of a sense of normalcy, like things I always do before I go out to train, for example. I do the same things when I'm backstage. So in my mind, I'm not necessarily thinking, oh my God, I'm going out to this big scary situation. It's just like, I'm going out to spar somebody who's being a bit of a dick. So I just need to, keep my hands up and be a dick right back, I guess. So it kind of helps center me. And I always wear my headphones. Like I have my wireless headphones on all the time until I get into the cage. Like, so that's really nice because for me, it's light and noise for the most part, my sensory issues.
Yeah.
So these help a lot since the noise canceling. And then I wear a hat a lot when I go out to kind of, and my hood up just to kind of limit how much light hits until it's time to go in the cage. And by then it's kind of a trigger of sorts that when the light hits me and the earphones come off, it's kind of like taking that collar off the dog and letting it go to war.
Yeah, and you could probably go into your laser focus kind of mentality then where nothing really can get in from the outside in. And I mean, when you're in the cage, I mean, is it if you're trying to focus and not pay attention with everything that's going around you? Like, I mean, there's lights everywhere, there's crowd, there's screaming and everything like that. Does it affect you in maybe getting some advice from your coach or anything like that? Or do you have that ability to be able to listen to his advice in the cage stage when you're in there in action?
Thankfully, Marv has a very distinct voice, so I'm easily picking up his voice. I mean, I still hear the crowd. I'll pick out like noises from my friends and stuff who may be in the crowd yelling, or my mom who's yelling as well. And I'm also keeping an ear out, trying to at least kind of trying to isolate and find out what the opponent's corner is saying as well, just to know what's going on. So it is hard, but it's like I'm in a fight for the most part. I am really like 90% of the time just zeroed in on my opponent, just trying to figure out what she's doing, because like trying to hit me, and I'm trying to really hit her. And the more I hit her, the more I cut her open, the better.
Nice. So looking ahead to your fight this Friday night, you're going up against Lauren Mueller. She's just coming off a stint in the UFC. Do you see this as an opportunity to go in there with a UFC caliber opponent to get that win, to kind of propel you onto the next level?
Absolutely. This will be the second UFC veteran I faced, and in a very short turnaround for me, if I may add on to that. My last fight was against another UFC veteran, Elizabeth Phillips. So when I got this call, I was kind of told to be on standby for something, because there was Lauren Mueller was supposed to face Monica Franco, but Franco got really ill with COVID to the point of like spitting up blood and everything, which it's horrible. Like I got COVID last year, but I was blessed. Thankfully, it wasn't that horrible, but that's what makes this, illness, I think, so scary, is we don't know how it works. Like all the way. Like we know how flu works, we know how fever works, et cetera, but because the symptoms vary so wildly from person to person, we can never tell. So I got called up.
Having catching the virus, did it have an effect on you in your preparations for a period of time? You were obviously, it's a viral infection that infects your lungs mostly, so that obviously they're very important when you're fighting. So was it hard to kind of get back into where you were before you had coronavirus, I guess?
It took about a good 2.5 months for me to feel like I could take full breaths again. During the process itself, it wasn't horrible. Like I had a really bad fever and I had body aches that kind of crippled me for about 2 days. But then my body started feeling back to normal, but then I lost my sense of smell and taste. But it was absolutely wild how it happened, because how it affected me, how it affected my little sister and one of my little brothers, who were the healthiest people in the house, was vastly different. Like my dad is older. He has high blood pressure. My mom has 2 autoimmune diseases, and one of my little brothers has also an autoimmune disease. It didn't get any of them, but it got me and my one brother who's healthy as an ox, and my little sister. My one little brother had no symptoms whatsoever. He only had a runny nose, but he's thinking it's allergies because in August, like the wind's kicking up dust and everything. And he's hugging my mom and stuff before going off to work. And yet my mom didn't catch it. It was wild. And then my little sister, she got kind of the short end of the stick, because a year later, her taste buds are still not completely back to normal. So she's one of those long haulers. For me, my taste went away and my smell went away for about 5 days. Like everything was like mashed potatoes to me. Taste wise, texture wise, like I couldn't taste it unless it was like maybe super spicy. So then, but I'm grateful because those came back normal after those few days. So like I said, no one can predict how it hits everybody. It was wild.
Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely has a different effect on everybody, and it makes it so scary. And I'm glad that you made a full recovery from it, and hopefully it doesn't. Yeah. So going back to the fight with Lauren Mueller, like how do you think that you match up with her, Serena? How do you think that the fight is going to go?
She's a well-rounded fighter, but so am I. I mean, we both primarily like striking, but it looks like she has all right grappling. I'm the anti-grappler, as one of my coaches, Neil Melanson, puts it, because I have good takedown defense, but if a takedown happens, it's because I initiated it. And I like to think I'm really strong, because I spar like women who are in the PFL fighting at 155 for fun. I'm like coming out. I had one of my friends, Olena, who was a 155er who was with us while she was at the tournament, like I'd be one of the few people who'd spar her. Like everyone's looking at her because she's so big. They'd be like, I don't know. And then there's people who are like, come here, let's have fun. Because it's like this. If I can survive with a 155er on the floor, standing up, then you know what? Anybody in my weight class should be a bit easier. So
Yeah.
Lauren's up in weight. And she's been off for 2 years. This means, and especially with the stid she had in the UFC, I bet she's really hungry to make a name for herself again, show everybody she's back. So I bet she's going to try to be in my face, but I don't think that's necessarily a great idea. A lot of people have tried to stay in my face, and I just make them pay for it. I've cut people open. I've bloodied them up. I'm a little sadistic in a way when people want to stand in front of me. So, and if they want to take me down, that's okay too. I have gifts for them. They can just find out.
Awesome. Well, also on the Invicta card, we have a 2 title fights on the Invicta 44 card. One of those is the vacant bantamweight title fight between Lisa Verosa and Tanisha Tennant. Do you have one eye on that title fight, and is that your aspiration to get to that title, Serena?
Absolutely, because either way, I want to fight both these women. I wanted to fight Tanisha, but I was robbed essentially last year in the Invicta tournament. I fought Taylor Gordado. I marched her down. I elbowed the crap out of her, and her ear looked like it was 8 months pregnant after I was done with her. And then even like she's all slumped over in the corner, and I'm dancing thinking I won that thing. I mean, I should have, right? But 2 of those judges clearly need to join me on a group deal for getting some, LASIK or something, because they clearly robbed me. And even Tanisha Tennant admitted in an interview afterwards that she was thinking that I won the fight. She was going to fight me in the finals. So it kind of sucked. But then these judges, they essentially set up this poor girl, Taylor, to get her ass beat twice in a night. But I mean, let's go her because she's now on the track to win, $1 million in the PFL tournament. She beats Kayla Harrison, so that'll be neat. But on the topic of Lisa, I've been wanting to fight her since amateurs. I wanted to fight her for Fusion Fight League as an amateur, but I didn't get that matchup. It didn't happen for whatever reason. I ended up fighting a featherweight who somehow made their way down to bantamweight after passing out, and Courtney King. And I fought her to a 5-round, fight, not giving a damn. And I wanted to fight her for my pro debut with the same promotion, but she got signed to Invicta, and it's just like, man. And then my 19-month injury happened right after my pro debut, so it was just like she had more time to collect more fights and more wins. So it's like, I've always had to wait for this. I mean, Lisa's cool though. I do like her. I mean, if I didn't have to fight her eventually, I could see us being friends. We're pretty much in the same we're kind of those nerd kids, together who just love to throw hands. Like she talks about all the like Magic the Gathering and stuff and anime, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh boy, I know exactly what she's talking about. So it's kind of cool. But, that's the sport. You sometimes got to fight your friends and things happen. But I am going to be keeping an eye on that title. But first things first, I got to get to work on Mueller.
Yeah, for sure. And do you feel if you did get over the line with Mueller that you would be put straight into a title shot? Would you like that? Or do you feel that you want to get a couple of more fights under your belt?
I honestly just will see what happens next, because when I go through Mueller, the doors open all over the place. It could open for an Invicta belt. It could open the door to Contender Series. It could open the door being signed outright. Like, there's a lot of things that could happen. And I don't like to overwhelm myself of the what ifs, because all of them could, could end up not happening. Who knows? So I just try to focus on the task at hand. But whatever is the best option that my coaches and everybody agree on going forward is the option I will take. So,
and I guess all this work would be building towards getting an opportunity to fight for the UFC eventually.
They need bantamweights, and I am a bantamweight and a very strong one. So
yeah, absolutely.
One. I've never had a fight.
Great. So I won't keep you any longer, Serena. I really appreciate you taking the time. I guess before we go, if you were to give a prediction on your fight with Lauren Mueller, what would you think it would be?
I think this will go to a decision because she likes to hang in all 3 rounds, and
Mhm,
minus my amateur MMA debut, all of my victories have gone to unanimous decision.
mhm.
So that's where I think if I can, if we just go I think we're gonna probably go the distance. But I would like to finally get a stoppage. I would finally like to either put somebody on the floor, get a submission win, just show everybody that I'm dangerous no matter where you put me, and to put that fear of God right in them.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you want to tell all of the audience where they could find you on social media, if you've got any sponsors to shout out, go right ahead, Serena.
So everybody can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Serena Southpaw. And if you guys follow my IG, if you see my stories, I'm always putting up all the dank memes. So I like to be as entertaining on IG as my fights are. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Combat Sports Law, My Consumer IT, Visbay Communications. I'd like to thank Echo and Rig. I'd like to thank, of course, MMA Twitter. Peeps there are pretty cool. I'd like to thank Roger Middler. Um, there's a whole lot of sponsors that I can't wait for you guys to see who have really supported me coming up through this. And I also give big shout out to my manager, Sean Rockwell, Prime Athletics. He's really been doing good by me and helping me stay active because this is the first year I've had more than one fight and per year, and it's really great. I miss being active, and it's great to have all these fights come together and just show everybody that I can do this. So big
Awesome.
shout out to you.
Awesome. Well, it's been great to talk to you, Serena. I really appreciate you taking the time. I wish you the best of skill this coming Friday, August 27th. You can see it, Serena DeJesus take on Lauren Mueller in the bantamweight division in Invicta FC 44. You can buy that on pay-per-view on Fight TV, and I truly recommend getting in there, watching Serena fight, watch all the other women fighters and showcase their talent. I mean, Invicta, like I said before, have been doing great things for many years. They're labeling this show the new era. I'm looking forward to seeing what Shannon Knapp and everybody has in store for us there. I'm looking forward to seeing you fight, Serena. Wish you all the best, and thank you once more for joining us. Thank you everybody for listening. My name is Ian O'Neill. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Go follow Serena on social media. Once again, thank you very much, Serena, and I look forward to talking to you again down the line.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me on. It was awesome.
Great.